Soros is a old, rich, opinionated person sitting in New York who still thinks that his views should determine how the entire world works.
You're watching Soros Saturday debate with me, Maria Shakil. External Affairs Minister Dr. S Jaishankar today lambasted billionaire George Soros over his comments against Prime Minister Narendra Modi and called him old, rich, opinionated and dangerous. He even said that Soros thinks his views should determine the way the world works. External Affairs Minister Jaishankar even reminded Soros that India's voters will decide the way this country runs. This comes a day after Soros accused the Modi government of crony capitalism, claiming it will weaken the Prime Minister's hold on the government and will lead to a democratic revival across India. In the wake of the BBC documentary controversy, George Soros sparked another political storm over anti-India propaganda right ahead of the G20 summit in the national capital in September, where India has assumed the role of presidency. This begs the question, does the West have an agenda? And is the opposition falling prey to anti-India propaganda? And is this info war for real? And is this really a threat for our country? Let's listen in to what the External Affairs Minister said.
The individual in question, Mr. Soros, is a old, rich, opinionated person sitting in New York who still thinks that his views should determine how the entire world works. Now, if I could only stop at old, rich and opinionated, I would put it away. But he is old, rich, opinionated and dangerous. Because what happens is when such people and such views and such organizations, they actually invest resources in shaping narratives. I spoke about globalization. Now, what globalization does is it actually creates lot of the seamlessness of globalization, which creates all the opportunities, also allows narratives to be shaped, money to come in, foundations to go about their agenda. Now, in this particular case, it is very clear that he has very strong political preferences.
So, who exactly is George Soros? He's a 92-year-old American investor and a philanthropist. He founded a non-profit called Open Society Foundations, which financially supports civil society groups around the world. Mr. Soros has a net worth of $8.5 billion. He launched his first hedge fund in 1969 and started a second one in 1970. In 1992, George Soros became one of the most famous currency traders in the world when he bet an enormous sum of money against the British pound. In the process, he pocketed over $1 billion and brought the Bank of England to its knees. Soros had also vowed to fight nationalists across the world. George Soros has been accused of interfering in the affairs of multiple countries, different countries. During the 2020 US elections, Donald Trump, in fact, accused Soros of providing financial support to various political organizations and candidates, particularly those who align with his progressive values. However, it's worth noting that campaign finance laws in the US allow individuals to donate money. So it's all right there. Soros has been accused of meddling in Ukrainian politics by supporting civil society groups and media outlets that were critical of the pro-Russian former President Viktor Yanukovych. Some have alleged that Soros played a role in the 2014 Ukrainian revolution that led to Yanukovych and his ouster. Soros has been a frequent target of criticism from Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orban, who has accused him of meddling in his country's politics through his support for civil society groups and media outlets that are critical of Orban's government. Again, Mr. Soros has been accused of meddling in Russian politics by supporting opposition groups that are critical of President Vladimir Putin's government. The Russian government has passed laws that restrict the activities of foreign-funded NGOs, many of which have received funding from Soros. George Soros' defense so far has been that providing funds to civil society groups is not illegal. He continues to have multiple links in India. And one such link is this man, Nobel laureate Amartya Sen. Soros and Sen are on the advisory council of an NGO called Namati. In January, in fact, Amartya Sen said that there is an atmosphere of intolerance prevailing in India and that will end soon. There is another link. This is of Harsh Mandar, who served as an advisory board member of Soros' Open Society Foundation, and that was for a period of 2020 to 2022. Mandar was named in the charge sheet that was linked to the violence around Jamia Millia Islamia and the entire anti-CA protests that we witnessed in Delhi. Then there is Basharat Peer, who served as a fellow at this same Open Society Foundation for a period of 1 year between 2009 and 2010. That year, Basharat Peer had claimed that Indian troops are killing protesters in Kashmir. There is another link, and this is the link to NGO Lawyers Collective, which is headed by advocates Indra Jaisingh and Anand Grover. Their FCRA license was cancelled over donations from Soros. So why does the Modi government actually think that Soros is anti-India? If you look at it, there are antecedents. In 2020, the same man pledged $1 billion to fund a new university network to tackle the spread of nationalism in a speech that he delivered at the World Economic Forum in Davos. At WEF itself, he criticized Prime Minister Modi and accused him of creating a Hindu nationalist state and threatening to strip Muslims of their citizenship. In 2016, the Indian government, in fact, placed the Open Society Foundation on a watch list of organizations that it said were working against the nation's interests. The government alleged that Soros and his organizations were funding groups that were critical of Modi government's policies on issues such as human rights, freedom of the press and religious tolerance. So when the External Affairs Minister said that this man is trying to influence India's policies and he has some people who are being funded here, maybe very well be funding them, then he may not be completely incorrect. Joining me on the show, R.P. Singh, BJP National Spokesperson, Anurag Badoria, Spokesperson of the Samajwadi Party. We have Dr. Andrew K.P. Leung, International and Independent China expert, joining me from Beijing. Professor Madhav Nalapat is a senior journalist. We also have Colonel Lawrence Selin. He is a former army officer and an international IT businessman. Professor Nalapat, has it ever happened that Indian billionaires or businessmen make such vicious comments against the leadership of other countries?
Look, Maria, if you can make $5 or $6 billion out of it, why not? George Soros is even now mainly famous for betting against the British pound and helping to cause a run on the pound that got him more than 1 billion pounds in profit at that point in time. In my view, I mean, Soros, this entire shot, if Soros had a hand in it, which the circumstantial evidence suggests that he has, it must have been in a lot more than Adani companies. What Soros was was probably hoping to do was to light the fuse so that when Adani goes up, a whole range of companies go down, not only Adani. And what happens is you short India, you short the Indian market. So frankly, I don't know what SEBI is doing, but I certainly hope they're collecting information on people who went into short positions on various other stocks during this period, because the intention was very clear. And George Soros, one good thing he has done, he has made it absolutely transparent and open, this particular attack on India. In the Sunday Guardian, we wrote about this, and there were some sniggers and smiles. But the reality, of course, now Mr. Soros has basically come out exactly with what Sunday Guardian was saying. I don't see any sniggers and smiles. So the fact is, one, most likely he wanted the entire market to be short, and to be shorted, and he thought that Adani was the key, because even in this latest thing, he is talking about Prime Minister Modi and Adani.
Yes.
I predicted from the first hour of this controversy, Prime Minister Modi will not lift his little finger to help Gautam Adani. And lo and behold, Prime Minister Modi did not lift his little finger to help Gautam Adani.
Yes, so Professor Nalapad, it's becoming increasingly clear that there is a larger conspiracy, and all these conspiracies, be it the BBC documentary, could very well be part of a larger toolkit. Because if you look at the series of articles that have come out in various international journals, they're raising questions about India, Indian economy, but they're completely baseless. Colonel Selin, who exactly is George Soros to question the wisdom of 1.3 billion people who elected Narendra Modi to Prime Minister's office?
Well, this has nothing to do with Mr. Adani or democracy. George Soros opposes the concept of nationalism, and Prime Minister Modi is an Indian nationalist. It is the same reason Soros opposes Viktor Orban of Hungary, because Orban is a Hungarian nationalist. George Soros does not believe in democracy or free and fair elections. He is in the business of subverting democracy. As he has in other countries, George Soros will use non-governmental organizations, NGOs, that he controls to undermine Indian democracy, even attempt to divide India along religious and ethnic lines to achieve his goal. George Soros' philosophy of government is closer to that of the Chinese Communist Party and the World Economic Forum. That is a one-party totalitarian state.
No, but Colonel Selin, if you look at it, in 2006, in an interview with CNBC about emerging markets, same George Soros was quite positive about India and its rise. He had said that it ought to be a positive development provided we weren't consuming a lot more and saving a lot less than we ought to. So what exactly has changed from the 2006 visit of Soros to now? If anything, it is it's only just the change of the government. Colonel Selin. Colonel, if you can hear me. Okay, Andrew KP Ling, it's becoming increasingly clear that there is a larger conspiracy, and what the BJP may be saying may not be completely incorrect. And if you look at what has happened and the entire background of this gentleman called George Soros, he is trying to say that there will be an uprising. I mean, who exactly is he to comment on the wisdom of a population of 1.3 billion? The fact is that Mr. Modi and his policies have been getting endorsements of the people of India. He has been winning elections.
I think that you've got to understand what George Soros stands for and his Open Society Foundation stand for in the light of all his actions and kind of raiding on the sovereignty of governments, as well as raiding on financial markets over the past several decades. It's making money out of that. So he's an opportunist. He's an opportunist raider, as I said, on governments as well as on financial markets in order to make a huge profit and to promote his name, his brand. So he's not being consistent or along one path, but of course his mantra is open society. Now, this is a bit ironic because India is the largest democracy in the world in terms of population. So, these current actions are targeted at the Adani Group because he spots a kind of political weakness, and is going to make use of that and hyping various stories in order to short the market and make a huge profit. Now he's targeting not only India, but of course he at the World Economic Forum recently, he also made a meal out of President Xi Jinping's record. So he's sporting various targets, as you can see from his track record.
So Anurag Bhadoria, here are two international experts. Both of them have been able to see through the larger game plan of George Soros, a billionaire who is visibly dangerous. But why is the opposition not standing with the government on this issue? Why should this be seen as criticism against Mr. Modi? Shouldn't it be seen as the criticism against the entire democratic and electoral process in India? It's a threat to us as a country.
और कोई व्यक्ति अगर बाहर बैठ के व्यक्ति हिंदुस्तान के लोकतंत्र पे सवाल उठाता है तो ये सरकार की जिम्मेदारी होती है कि वो उस सरकार से बात करे कि कोई व्यक्ति हिंदुस्तान के लोकतंत्र पे या हिंदुस्तान के प्रधानमंत्री जी के बारे में क्यों ऐसी बातें कर रहा है, क्योंकि हमारे आपस की ये हिंदुस्तान के हमारे अंदर की बात है। अगर हमें शिकायत भारतीय जनता पार्टी से है तो हम भारतीय जनता पार्टी से अपने हिंदुस्तान के अंदर में लोकतांत्रिक तरीके से उनसे लड़ते हैं, भारतीय जनता पार्टी को आईना दिखाने का काम करते हैं। लेकिन हम ये कतई नहीं चाहेंगे कोई बाहरी व्यक्ति आके हिंदुस्तान के जो हमारे आपसी जो मतभेद हैं उसमें कोई इंटरफेयर करे आके, चाहे वो जॉर्ज सोरस हो चाहे कोई भी हो। और इस सरकार की भी जिम्मेदारी बनती है। इस तरह के लोग जब हिंदुस्तान पे इस तरह की भाषा का इस्तेमाल कर रहे हैं तो सरकार भी उनके जो एम्बेसडर हैं या उनके जो राष्ट्रपति उनसे बात करे। जैसे हमने हिंडनबर्ग के बारे में बोला था, हिंडनबर्ग अगर हिंदुस्तान पे ऐसा सवाल उठाता है तो हिंडनबर्ग की भी इंक्वायरी कर लेनी चाहिए हिंदुस्तान की सरकार को। तो हिंदुस्तान की सरकार चुप क्यों? इसमें कोई व्यक्ति हिंदुस्तान के बारे में बात करता है तो हिंदुस्तान की जिम्मेदारी बनती है कि उसको पलट के जवाब देने की, उसके ऊपर इंक्वायरी करने की, उसके लिए वो जाके एक इंटरनेशनल फोरम में इसकी बात रखे कि भाई हमारी आपसी कोई बात है तो बाहर वाला क्यों आएगा। और मैं तो ये कहूंगा कि सरकार को सचेत रहने की जरूरत है। बजाय विपक्ष को टारगेट करने के उसको टारगेट करना चाहिए कि जो विदेशी लोग हमारे बारे में या हिंदुस्तान के बारे में गलत बोल रहे हैं, आखिर उनकी हिम्मत ऐसे क्यों पड़ रही है, उनको ताकत कहाँ से मिल रही है। तो ये तो सरकार की जिम्मेदारी है।
RP Singh, respond to this. It is the government which has to be alert of these challenges that are coming from likes of George Soros or even the BBC documentary. Why blame the opposition and the linkages that the opposition is trying, the government is trying to build, that Mr. Soros has links with the Congress party and, he's the man who had some interest also in government formation.
Well, when George Soros says that he will remove Prime Minister Modi or unseat Prime Minister Modi, obviously he's looking for Rahul Gandhi as the next Prime Minister. That's the question. And also, the congressman, the Praveen Chakrabarti, one of the key close associate of Mr. Rahul Gandhi, has welcomed the George Soros statement. Thirdly, I'll appreciate, since the Congress spokesperson is not here, I'll appreciate, send a message to them, ask them whether at some given time any front organization of George Soros, any NGO or any other front organization of George Soros has ever funded Rajiv Gandhi Foundation or not. So there is an ecosystem being built for 2024 election in India and then supported from people from abroad. And then there are corporations, there are NGOs, research organizations like Hindenburg, and there are bundle parties and there are Congress. All put together, since they can't defeat Prime Minister Modi or they can't defeat BJP in electoral battle, that's why build up some fabrication, some falsehood.
Okay, then shouldn't you be ensuring that
build
as
up
far
that.
as domestic politics is concerned, all parties speak in one language. Mr. Anurag Bhadoria is standing with you. What about you?
I said, will Anurag Bhadoria say this to Congress party? I mean, I just named Parveen. I'm naming the person. Parveen Chakrabarti is the key associate, is the key functionary of the Congress party.
Okay. Anurag Bhadoria.
एक मिनट भदौरिया जी, मैं पूरी अपनी बात पूरी करूं तो आप जुड़ दीजिएगा। एक भदौरिया साहब,
अरे भाई,
अरे भदौरिया साहब, मैंने अपनी बात ही पूरी नहीं करी, आप अपनी जवाब पे आ गए। आप
अरे हम तो
आप ये अपने दोस्तों को बताइए ना, कांग्रेस पार्टी में अपने दोस्तों को बताइए, और एक देश के अंदर आप अलग से बवाल खड़ा कर रहे हैं, सबको जानकारी है कि आप देश में एक नया टाइप का बवाल खड़ा कर रहे हैं,
से बात कीजिए। आप विपक्ष पे उंगली उठा रहे हो, कमाल की बात कर रहे हैं आप भाई। हम तो हिंदुस्तान की गवर्नमेंट के साथ खड़े हैं,
पैसा यहाँ पर एनजीओ के माध्यम से यहाँ पर जाएगा,
हम कह रहे हैं कि हमारे प्रधानमंत्री जी के ऊपर में या हमारे लोकतंत्र के ऊपर में कोई हमला करेगा तो हम आपके साथ हैं, क्योंकि हम हिंदुस्तान के साथ खड़े। आप हिंदुस्तान के साथ हैं कि नहीं, ये बता दीजिए।
उसका
आप बेवजह का सवाल उठा रहे हैं। मैं आपसे पूछ रहा हूं, अगर फंडिंग आ भी रही थी तो सरकार क्या कर रही थी पिछले दिनों से? जिनको फंडिंग आ रही थी उससे क्यों नहीं आपने कार्रवाई की? अब जब सवाल उठ गया तब आप इस तरह की बातें कर रहे हैं। कमाल है भाई, हम आपके साथ, हम हिंदुस्तान की सरकार के साथ खड़े हैं, हम हिंदुस्तान के साथ खड़े हैं। आप हमारे साथ हैं कि नहीं, ये बताइए। आप उसके बारे में इंक्वायरी करवाएंगे कि नहीं करवाएंगे, ये बताइए। सोरस के बारे में, जॉर्ज सोरस के बारे में आप उसके बारे में उसकी आवाज उठाएंगे कि नहीं उठाएंगे? क्योंकि उसकी इतनी हिम्मत कैसे होगी कि हिंदुस्तान के ऊपर में।
Okay, I have just enough time for the final words to Colonel Selin. Colonel Selin, what is evident here is that here is a billionaire who thinks that he can subvert democratic processes. So he is a threat not just to India, because his criticisms against Prime Minister Modi is evident and on the surface. He is a threat to just about every democracy.
Yes, indeed. He doesn't believe in democracy. There are reports in the United States that George Soros has been meddling in the U.S. elections. There are reports that he uses his non-governmental organizations to interfere with our border situation, helping illegal immigrants go into the United States. So I consider him a threat to the United States and the American democracy. And I think it's the same all over the world. I mentioned Hungary. He's interfering in Hungary through his NGOs. I definitely think he's a threat to Indian democracy and will subvert Indian democracy if he has an opportunity to do so in order to put the people he wants running the government in charge. And that is not Prime Minister Modi, because Prime Minister Modi is an Indian patriot and an Indian nationalist, and George Soros doesn't want him running India.
But the question is that the people of India want him. That's the reason why he's been winning elections. So it has to be seen as people of India versus George Soros, and he will not have, he may be having his way in other countries, but not certainly in India. Thank you so much for your time, RP Singh, Anurag Bhadoria, Colonel Selin, Professor Madhav Nalapad, and Dr. Andrew K.P. Leung. Some piece of breaking news coming in now. Eknath Shinde camp has filed a caveat before the apex court in wake of the Election Commission order giving symbol to them. Caveat seeks that no ex-parte orders be passed in case Uddhav camp files a plea before the Supreme Court challenging the Election Commission's order. What does it actually mean? Ananya is joining me on the phone line. Ananya, yes, go ahead.
Well, a caveat is basically filed when you want to restrict the other party from taking an ex-parte order, which means that without hearing both the sides, one order is passed. So the caveat has been filed by the Eknath Shinde camp, clearly saying that until and unless the Supreme Court hears both these sides, it should not pass any kind of order in this. It is a kind of a restriction or a warning that we call in legal parlance. Now, after the caveat is being filed, whenever the matter is mentioned before the topmost court of the country, or whenever a petition in this case is filed challenging the orders of the Election Commission of India, giving the bow and arrow symbol to the Eknath faction of the Shiv Sena. Now, what would happen would be all of these would be heard only when an order would pass, they would be granted without hearing the Eknath Shinde faction as well. So both the sides would be heard first in this particular matter. Our sources in Uddhav Thackeray's legal team also have told us that the process of challenging this particular order is under deliberations are still going on as to how and on what grounds should this order be challenged, because we have to remember that Election Commission order our constitutional body's order, and there is a very, very narrow and a small scope of judicial review. And in fact, we also spoke to Eknath Shinde's legal team yesterday, who clearly said that very, very few, if at all, they want to challenge this particular order, and definitely this order would be upheld by the Supreme Court as well.
All right, Ananya, I really appreciate your time. Thank you so much for joining us. With that, it's a wrap from me. I'll be seeing you tomorrow. Thanks so much for watching.